Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
J'ai pris la pétard parce que j'ai une journée l'anglais. Et donc, je suis venu aujourd'hui à vous cycler de piquet.
Good afternoon, fellow scholars and friends.
Good morning.
Buongiorno, everyone. My name is Federica, and this is Mariano.
Ladies and gentlemen, I warmly welcome you all.
Bonjour à tous, je m'appelle Steven.
Et à toutes, je suis Lizzie. My name is Sophie and this is my sister Friederike.
We are here to introduce Ireland and our school, King's College.
Alright, so greetings to all of you again, or servus as we would say in Austria.
Europe, they stand up for the rights of all people and is ready to offer help to anyone who needs it.
Today, we're all in the same boat, caught in a storm where vessels once threatened to destroy it and everything around it. We owe to support the existence of the European Union, today shaken, and prevent its collapse. Let us follow and live by the ancient Greeks' motto, divided we fall, united we stand.
Nowadays, we have become aware of the adversities that Europe and its members have faced. However, it's important to understand that this process of European construction is not completely finished. It is in constant evolution. Values like cooperation, compassion, responsibility, and loyalty must be preserved. And don't forget, we are the future. We are the voice.
'Cause you got the words to change a nation, and you know how much you're strong.
You can't spend a lifetime stuck in silence, afraid you'll say something wrong.
If no one ever hears, how you gonna learn your song?
So come on, come on.
I wanna sing, I wanna shout,
I wanna scream till those words dry out. So put in all of the papers, I'm not afraid. We can read all about it, read all about it.
Ho, 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 ho.
Thank you very much.
Development means political stability, without doubt. Is European Union or any other global foundation able to intervene in the political affairs of a developing country to assure this prerequisite? And secondly, I'd like to tell you a short story. On the 26th January of 2014, a small town called Lixouri, my town, was hit by a devious earthquake. The only 2 high schools and the primary school among 2 were destroyed. 2 years after, we still protest in the roads, but the only response we take from the mayor is no money. So we've started getting used to prefabricated schools posted by the sea, with no place for activities. Equality means giving same-shaped wings to those who haven't yet. How feasible is the creation of a special field in the European Union, which will be responsible for the assurance of high-quality school facilities all across the European Union?
With the Schengen member states facing large numbers of refugees coming in, how could the Schengen Agreement be revised in order to provide its citizens in order to approach the case with the refugees, while it's upholding its principles of freedom of movement, security, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Can the European Union do something against racism in our country? For example, because we have very much attacks on refugee centers in the last months, and I think if there's anything we can do, we can discuss it.
Since the national elections in Poland, the political landscape there has changed massively. It has become more right-winged and more undemocratic, and many undemocratic laws have passed also by the Polish government. And so now what political and economical measures can be taken by the European Union to prevent such developments in member states, for example, also Hungary, and in this case, Poland?
What can the European Union do, or what has it done, to improve the refugee crisis at the present moment, and what will it do in the future? Thank you.
We have to protect the environment, so we have laws for it. But because of these laws, we are losing in front of Asian businesses. These businesses pollute the environment, but they are cheaper and win more money. They destroyed European businesses too. What must the European Union do? Remember, we can destroy the environment.
Despite the efforts which have been made to return the marbles, the Elgin marbles in the British Museum, they haven't yet been returned to the Parthenon. What is the opinion of the European Union on this? They're still the British Museum.
Higher education is necessary for today's job market, but some countries doesn't have free universities or college. Some people cannot afford to get a higher education than a high school one. Do you have any plans so everyone can get a higher education than a high school one? I think that higher education shouldn't be something just for the privileged people, but something for everyone.
A social network is very important for young people. Social networks are used to exchange ideas and opinions. Do you think that the European Union should get closer to this youth culture, given that we are the future? It's well known that there is a great deal of discussion about the UK's remaining in the European Union. What consequences would there be for the European Union if the UK were to leave the Union?
What measures are taken for equality between men and women in the European Parliament? Thank you.
What is the European Union doing to ensure that companies provide job security and protect the environment, and to ensure that they live up to their social responsibilities?
How the European Union see the future of internet privacy and net neutrality. Our proposal is quite simple. It's a lot of things you'd expect. So firstly, we move to increase funding toward this massive issue, this issue that really is defining our generation. And I think it's the important thing to remember, that it is a massive issue, and if we don't solve it, well then, it's not going to go well. We're just going to destroy the only place we can live. So that's our first point, is to increase funding with the help of a lot of projects and local organizations in each country, and with the help of the government. Secondly, also very important, is to raise awareness, and this is done mainly through social media campaigns and education. And the most important point we came up with for the social media campaigns is to change the way we talk about the environment. We always say, like, in 50 years, the environment will be gone. And it's sort of a fact that we don't really care about the future. The way our brains work, we just sort of see the future as something distant, and we even view our future selves as other people. So what we move to do in our social media campaigns and in our education programs is to discuss these as they're happening now. This is something we need to act on immediately, or else it will come back to bite us. Our final point is a large enough point about how we deal with companies. We want to introduce an idea of economic conversion, which is basically where we encourage companies to move away from their current environmentally unfriendly ways, such as producing large amounts of plastic bags, and move toward more environmentally friendly things, such as producing recyclable or recycled paper bags, because little things like that, when produced in large companies, are huge.
I only want to ask you how do you want to finish this project with the paper bags, because plastic bags are less expensive, and so the most factories are producing plastic bags and not paper bags. It's because of the recycling and everything else that is more expensive. It is a good way, that's true, but how do you want to convince the factories from producing these things?
Yes, well, as I mentioned in my speech, I think the most efficient way of doing this would be through the use of tax breaks. We would give them tax breaks in such a way that it would not only be equal to producing paper bags, but it would be more beneficial for them and for our planet. Thank you.
We think a human right should be handled as a crime on short term and not on long term, because if we limit things on long term, we will forget about our democracy, for an example, because if we say we can't have a limit of, we can't do our freedom of speech, what is our democracy? It is gone. This is one of the examples, and we think it should be more important to really give more security instead of honor human rights, limit the human rights. Yeah, so we think we can't add anything, because if we can't add anything on the limitations, because if we can't speak anymore, if we don't have privacy anymore, those kind of things, if we can't show our happiness anymore, then there is a big chance there is coming the dictator again, as we've seen in the past. So for us, we can't place limitations on human rights if security at stake, because everything is so different.
It's easy to say that we can increase our security to improve the situation with human rights, but that's an obvious conclusion, and if so, why isn't that already done? And I personally think it's maybe an issue of money, and that we can't increase our security. Thank you.
Well, it is really a hard question, a hard topic, because we also have our right of privacy, and if we have more security, does our privacy get lost? So we didn't really talk about that further on, but it is a hard question, it really is, but we don't really have an answer on that.
So this time we decided that financial aid is useful, and it should definitely continue within these developing countries, but a decrease is necessary due to our own crisis and our lack of funds to help ourselves. And we also decided financial aid on its own is not the best solution to developing and assisting nations. And there's a lot of better long-term solutions than handouts like financial aid. So through discussing what kind of aid we should provide, it was agreed that universal education, so education for everyone, is the most useful solution that we could have, and that it should be given along with improvements in food quality, and also water quality and availability of water. Also, the idea of microcredits, which is money given to workers to help them develop and start up their own businesses, so it would improve the economy within the country itself. So overall, there was a consensus that there needs to be a change within the way that aid is given in developing countries.
One of the Sustainable Development Goals is to end world hunger, but the money lost by developing countries to big corporations like Zambia Sugar is enough to end world hunger 3 times. What do you think the European Union can do to achieve transparency of big corporations and governments, and to end corporate tax dodging and end world hunger?
The thing about financial aid is that most of the people disagreed on that. In our group, we said that we do understand that the financial aid of the EU was decreased because of the economic crisis. There is also a refugee crisis. It all affects you, but that's the point. We don't really think that money can help, like water, food, and such things can. So I think if we focus on, in this case, food, and spend food in Asian and African countries, we can change pretty much a lot of things. Of course, we are not able to change the whole world, but just by starting, we can achieve something. And education, clean water, food, those are the basic needs that everybody should have. Thank you.
In terms of education, we propose that particularly higher education is more of a right. So we believe that in the future that higher education should be free. It already is free in some countries. Or even if it couldn't be free, if it could be subsidized, or there could be grants that were easily accessible for people. Also, we agreed that for universities, their qualifications are recognized across all countries as equals, whereas when it comes to high school exams and qualifications, there are differing levels between them. So we propose that the same thing that happens with the universities in terms of equality of the level, that should happen with the high school subjects as well. Also, we believe that because of your vote earlier, a lot of people said that they didn't get enough education on the European Union, even though everybody here comes from a member country of the European Union. So we propose that there's more classes and education about that. We should keep Schengen in the EU. They liked the idea of being able to have free movement among the countries. They thought that borders were not something that we should aim for in the future, that we should aim to deconstruct borders and build friendships and unity between each other. And the people in our group thought that the Schengen Agreement of the open borders represents the values that the EU was founded on and we want to keep that in the future.
I heard you said you wanted to make education for free, but education is just an investment in your future. So why should the European Union pay for that?
Well, education is paid through tax in countries. It's not the European Union itself, it's per country. But we believe in general within the European Union that there should be free education, or if not free education, heavily subsidized education, because without free education, there's inequality in terms of people who can't afford to maybe go to university and do the good degree that they want to do, whereas the people who have the money can afford to do it. So it's mainly about uniting people and decreasing inequality among people.
One of the problems we face is determining the difference between refugees fleeing war and those who are economic migrants. One solution that was raised was that we conduct interviews on the borders using real Syrian citizens in order to have a test linguistically and culturally to see if people fleeing from outside the EU and into the EU are actual Syrian citizens, and from that assumption, we can assume that they are actually migrants fleeing war. Finally, there was the problem of long-term integration. We thought that children and adults should receive language and culture classes when they arrive in their countries where they seek sanctuary, to assist integration into their new societies, and also that education against the ideas of racism and xenophobia should be conducted in all EU countries to reduce ill feeling towards refugees. The media's influence in this way, presenting minority events such as the sex attacks in Cologne recently, give a negative image of people coming into our EU countries. We need to find a way to allow this to become more fair and to allow justice in order to help these people. Thank you.
Referring to what happens in the Mediterranean region, what kind of economic and practical aid can we do, and also how we can practically support those countries like mine, like Lampedusa?
It is true that we have embassies for each of our countries in the majority of EU countries. And it's possible that if we establish stronger links with these places, these embassies in other countries, okay, for example, I live in Sweden, and the Swedish embassy is in Germany for Germany. And there are a large number of migrants there. Therefore, we can establish a stronger link between the embassies in Sweden to operate and help refugees and do our part as European citizens using an embassy somewhere else without physically having to go there. In that way, we can operate, each having a center in each country where we can operate and allow aid to be distributed with people on the ground in these locations. I don't believe in throwing money at the problem and making it go away, but we need to definitely target specific organizations such as the United Nations in order to help us, and UNICEF, and actually organize charities. So I think through the use of embassies in other countries and the use of global organizations and charities, we can also help play a part.
Youth unemployment is a huge problem in the European Union right now, and we try to debate how to tackle this problem. We came to the conclusion that the biggest problem right now is that employers want to rather employ experienced workers in their field than the youth fresh out of education. So our first point would be to start the introduction of real life to the youth by starting classes already before high school, maybe at the age of 12, that include stuff like learning how to write a proper CV or prepare for job interviews. And while we're at education, we think that countries all across the European Union need higher level of language teaching so we can continue our studies or work in other countries more efficiently. Right now, a lot of us feel a big difference in our knowledge of languages.
You said it would be nice to have classes for children up to 12 years old so they could make their CVs from then. Don't you think that this spoils a little bit childhood?
Well, it definitely does spoil a little bit of childhood, but I was thinking after 12 years old. So yes, before you are 12 years old, you pretty much don't even care about this, but then maybe you start to pick up this whole real life thing, and maybe you want to get to know it. So I think it would be just really good for already children knowing how to function in the real world. I think that would be a big step against youth unemployment.